Imagine you're walking through this dense, ancient Indian forest, and you come across a clearing,
Okay.
and there's an ascetic there, a hermit. And you watch as he carefully, like lovingly coaxes a highly venomous viper into a hollow joint of bamboo.
Just, to keep it as a pet.
Right. And you walk up to him and clearly warn him, like, hey, that snake is going to kill you. And he just looks at you completely unbothered and says, no, this snake is like my son.
Wow.
And he just ignores you. So today we're exploring why our brains are practically hardwired to keep vipers in our own lives and why we are just so incredibly bad at recognizing our own psychological blind spots.
Welcome to today's deep dive. We have a truly fascinating stack of sources for you today.
We really do. What we're looking at are excerpts from the ancient Jataka Tales, which are specifically translated texts detailing the Buddha's past lives.
Right.
And it's very easy to look at these millennial-old texts, see the talking animals, the magic charms, the ancient kings, and just sort of dismiss them as simple children's fables.
Yeah, like fairy tales. Exactly. But when you actually strip away the ancient set dressing, what you are left with is a razor-sharp, incredibly precise diagnostic manual of human cognitive failure.
And that is exactly the mission for today's deep dive. We want to extract the underlying mechanics of these fables. Because the psychological traps these characters fall into...
And they fall into a lot of them.
Oh, constantly, whether it's catastrophic stubbornness or, misguided intentions or just a complete inability to evaluate systemic risk. These are the exact same traps you fall into at your job, in your relationships, just in your daily life.
Yeah, let's start with that hermit in the forest you mentioned. This is from the Jataka Tales. The hermit actually earns the nickname Bamboo's father from the other ascetics because of his absolute obsession with this young viper.
Bamboo's father. That's incredibly specific.
It is. And the bodhisattva, who in this particular life is the wise teacher of the group, he sees this happening and gives him a very explicit warning. He says, "A viper can never be trusted. Keep it no longer."
Wait, let me make sure I'm tracking this. He puts a literal apex predator, a creature entirely incapable of, domestic affection, into a tube and calls it his son.
Yes. He literally tells his teacher that the venomous snake is as dear to him as a pupil, and he absolutely refuses to let it go.
Unbelievable.
So the tragedy is basically locked in at this point. The hermits have to leave their camp to gather fruit for a few days, and the viper is left behind just trapped inside its bamboo prison.
Oh, no.
Yeah. When Bamboo's father returns, he goes straight to his pet. He reaches his bare hand inside, saying, "Come, my son, you must be hungry."
You can see exactly where this is going.
Right. The starving, angry viper immediately strikes. It bites his outstretched hand, kills the man on the spot, and just escapes into the jungle.
Okay, let's unpack this, because on the surface, the guy just looks completely brainless.
Right.
But why does a human being actually do this? Because we see this all the time today.
Yeah.
Someone refuses to let go of a deeply toxic romantic relationship, or they keep pouring their life savings into a failing business.
Yeah.
Throwing good money after bad.
Exactly. And they arrogantly think, I can fix it, or I'm the exception to the rule. So how does the brain justify reaching into the bamboo?
What's fascinating here is that it basically comes down to ego and this psychological defense mechanism of anthropomorphism. Bamboo's father isn't actually attached to the snake. He is attached to his own illusion of control.
Oh, interesting.
Right. When you are warned about a toxic situation in your life, accepting that warning means admitting you made a terrible judgment call.
It means you were wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It means acknowledging your own vulnerability. So what does the brain do to protect the ego? It projects human emotions onto a cold-blooded reptile. By calling it my son, the hermit has created this fictional narrative where his love and his care can somehow override the fundamental biological reality of the viper.
It's like trying to rewrite the source code of a machine using only emotional pleas.
Yeah.
The machine doesn't understand love. It only understands its programming. The hermit is basically trying to negotiate with gravity. That is a perfect way to look at it. The laws of reality do not care about your ego. And notice how the text frames the aftermath here. The bodhisattva doesn't just shake his head and walk away.
Right, he addresses it.
He gathers the other ascetics around the funeral pyre and uses the death as a masterclass. He explains that those who pay no heed to the kindly counsel of friends will be brought to naught.
Brought to naught. That's That's pretty definitive.
It is. The text is pointing out that stubbornly clinging to your own projection while ignoring the objective reality that everyone else can clearly see isn't just foolish, it's a fatal flaw in human software.
But the terrifying thing is, willful stubbornness isn't the only way our software crashes.
No, definitely not.
Because sometimes the ego isn't involved at all. Sometimes we are brought down by people who genuinely, desperately want to help us, but they just completely lack the contextual knowledge to do so safely.
Yeah, the texts shift focus from the tragedy of arrogance to the absolute danger of pure ignorance. Just good intentions, totally divorced from competence.
There are two stories in the sources that highlight this brilliantly. First, we have the Buddhist Jataka, which is honestly darkly comedic.
It really is.
So we have this maidservant named Rohi. Her elderly mother is lying down trying to rest, but she's being swarmed and stung by all these flies. And the mother asks Rohit to please drive the flies away.
Just a simple request.
Right. But Rohit gets fired up, and she grabs a heavy, solid wooden pestle, like the massive tool used for grinding grain.
Not exactly a fly swatter.
No. And she screams, "I'll kill them."
Yeah. And violently smashes her mother in the face with it. She just kills her mother outright while trying to swat a single fly.
It's a brutal, shocking image, but it's meant to be. And the text immediately pairs it with the Buddhist Jataka. Here, a tavern keeper has to step out for a bit, so he leaves his young apprentice in charge of selling strong spirits to the customers.
Okay.
And the apprentice notices that the patrons are eating salt and raw sugar as basically a little appetizer while they drink, which, makes sense. A little salt makes the drink taste better. We still do that today.
Right, exactly. But the apprentice decides he wants to be incredibly proactive and helpful. He thinks he can save the customers the effort of snacking entirely.
Oh boy.
So he takes a full pound of salt and just dumps it directly into the tavern's giant brewing bowl of grog.
A pound.
A full pound. He stirs it all in. The customers take one sip of this brine, spit it out in disgust, and just abandon the tavern, which completely ruins the master's business.
See, I look at these and I'm like, how does a brain confuse a massive wooden pestle with a fly swatter? Or a pound of salt with a subtle garnish? It feels like an alien attempting to mimic human behavior without actually understanding the physics behind it.
Well, what you're looking at is a cognitive failure to understand context and proportion.
Okay, explain that.
The brain tunnel visions on the immediate objective. For Rohin, the objective is simply eliminate fly. For the apprentice, it's deliver salt. They identify a very real problem, but because they completely lack a broader understanding of how the physical world operates, their execution is disastrous.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and we have a tendency in modern society to excuse massive amounts of damage if the person, meant well.
Right, like that well-meaning friend who tries to fix your computer and accidentally deletes your entire hard drive.
Exactly. But the Bodhisattva's conclusion in the tavern text pushes back hard against that excuse. The text says, "'Tis knowledge crowns endeavor with success, for fools are thwarted by their foolishness."
It's like treating an electrical fire with a bucket of water. I mean, the intention is purely to help. You see a fire, you think water puts out fire. But because you don't understand the underlying chemistry, the actual context of the danger, your attempt to help acts as a lethal accelerant.
Yes.
The text is basically screaming at you that caring is not a substitute for competence.
Precisely. It demands that you scrutinize the competence of the people you allow to help you. And it forces you to question your own competence before you step in to solve someone else's problem.
Which makes me wonder, if ignorant help is like throwing water on an electrical fire, what happens when you introduce unlimited resources into a volatile situation?
Oh, that's a dangerous mix.
Because that takes us to the Buddhist Jataka. And the stakes here escalate from ruined grog to just a massive multi-casualty disaster.
The Buddhist Jataka is arguably the most psychologically complex narrative in this entire stack of sources. It's an incredible study in systemic risk and the catastrophic cost of impatience.
Let me set the stage for you because the mechanics of this story are fascinating.
Yeah.
We have a Brahmin who possesses this magical incantation called the Vidabha charm.
Right.
If he looks up at the sky during a specific rare planetary conjunction and chants this spell, it causes a literal rain of the 7 things of price. We're talking gold, silver, pearls, coral, rubies, diamonds. Wealth simply falls from the clouds.
He essentially has a magic money printer.
Exactly. Now, he's traveling through a dense, dangerous forest with his pupil, who is the Bodhisattva. And they end up being captured by a notorious band of 500 robbers known as the Dispatchers.
That name is intimidating enough on its own.
Yeah, right. And the text goes out of its way to explain the specific bureaucracy of these robbers. When they capture two people, they have a strict policy. Keep one as a hostage and dispatch the other to fetch a ransom.
Hence the name.
Right. So they tie up the Brahmin and tell the pupil to go get the money.
But before the pupil leaves, he realizes the planetary conjunction is going to happen that very night. And he knows his master has the charm.
Right. So he gives the Brahmin an incredibly strict warning. He says, do not use the charm. I will be back with the ransom in a few days. If you use the charm to buy your way out tonight, you will be killed and everyone will be destroyed.
A very clear warning.
But the pupil leaves, night falls, the Brahmin is sitting there tied to a tree, and he starts to panic. He thinks, why should I suffer here when I can just make it rain gold and buy my freedom right now? So he chants the spell. The treasure rains down, the robbers are overjoyed, they untie him, and everyone starts gathering the loot. Right. Here's where it gets really interesting, because I have to stop here and push back on the text's premise.
Okay, go for it.
Because if I put myself in the Brahmin's shoes, I am captured by a literal death squad. I am tied to a tree. I have a magic spell that prints infinite money. I am 100% using that spell.
You'd make it rain.
Absolutely. How can the text frame him as the foolish antagonist here? He's acting completely rationally to survive.
Well, this raises an important question, and it's exactly how the human brain justifies disastrous short-term decisions. You are looking at the situation strictly through the lens of first-order consequences.
What do you mean?
The Brahmin's logic is perfectly sound on a localized level, right? Problem equals captivity. Solution equals money. Therefore, produce money to solve captivity.
Right, A to B.
But the pupil wasn't warning him about the first step. He was warning him about the second, third, and fourth order consequences. The Brahmin thought his core problem was a lack of ransom money. The pupil understood that the core problem was the volatility of the robbers themselves. When you inject infinite unearned wealth into an unstable system, it doesn't stabilize the system. It acts as an extreme chaotic attractor.
Because the robbers now have a massive pile of treasure just sitting out in the open in a dangerous forest.
Exactly. And the systemic collapse happens immediately. The first band of robbers is gathering the wealth, and a second band of 500 robbers spots them.
So now we have 1,000 robbers.
Yes. This new band attacks, captures the Brahmin, and demands he make it rain for them too. But the Brahmin can't.
Because the planetary alignment passed.
Right. The conjunction has passed, and the spell won't work for another year. The new robbers think he is holding out on them, so they draw their swords and literally cut him in two.
Wow. So his impatience directly causes his own execution.
And it triggers a total bloodbath. The second band of robbers, who are furious now, they slaughter the first band. Then, fighting over the massive pile of loot, the remaining 500 turn on each other.
It just spirals completely out of control.
Total chaos. They divide into factions and butcher one another until only 2 men are left standing.
With just 2 out of 1,000.
Yeah. Then, those final 2 men decide they don't want to split the treasure, so they secretly poison each other's food and they both die. Days later, the pupil returns with the meager ransom money, only to find a forest littered with 1,000 corpses and just a mountain of untouched gems.
That is haunting. By trying to skip the temporary discomfort of being a hostage for just a few days, he engineered the destruction of an entire micro-society.
It's what the text calls misguided effort. The Brahmin just couldn't tolerate the friction of waiting, and we do this constantly in modern life.
Oh, absolutely.
A company takes on toxic levels of debt to artificially inflate quarterly earnings, ignoring the systemic collapse it guarantees 3 years down the line. Or, a person tells a massive lie to avoid a mildly uncomfortable conversation, only to destroy their marriage when the lie unravels.
The brain prioritizes immediate relief over long-term stability, completely blind to the chain reaction it just initiated.
Exactly.
That inability to understand the broader mechanism to look past the immediate outcome segues us directly into the final behavioral trap. Because the Brahmin's flaw was impatience. But the next theme is about something far more subtle. It's about the failure to recognize the point of diminishing returns, knowing when to quit.
Which is an incredibly common cognitive failure, especially when things are actually going well.
Right. We see this clearly in 2 highly similar stories from the texts, the Buddhist Jataka and the Sakadamana Jataka. In the first one, there's a drummer and his son.
Okay.
They travel to a festival in Benares, they play their drums beautifully, and they make an absolute fortune. Now they are walking back to their village, and their route takes them through a forest known to be infested with violent thieves.
Notice the recurring motif of the dangerous forest here. It represents the unpredictability of the external world.
Exactly. Now, the father is a seasoned traveler. He tells his son, listen, we're carrying a lot of cash. We need a deterrent. Beat your drum, but do it rhythmically and occasionally.
Like a slow march.
Right. He says, make it sound like the steady, spaced-out drumming of a great lord's procession passing through. The thieves will hear it, assume we are a massive military escort, and leave us alone. It is a brilliant psychological strategy.
It really is. But it requires an understanding of nuance.
But the son completely ignores the nuance. He thinks, well, if occasional drumming makes us safe, non-stop, maximum volume drumming will make us invincible.
Oh, no.
So he just starts wailing on the drum continuously as loud and fast as he can.
And the robbers, who are initially intimidated by the subtle drumming, they stop and listen. They hear this chaotic, manic noise, and the illusion just shatters.
They realize it's not a disciplined army at all. It's just one overly enthusiastic kid making a racket. So they rush in, beat the father and son, and steal every coin they made at the festival. And the text notes the exact same sequence happens to a conch blower who overblows his horn. So what does this all mean? I look at this, and I see a fundamental flaw in how humans calculate effort.
How so?
Well, the son believed in a purely linear relationship. More noise equals more safety. But the father understood that the world is nonlinear. He understood that the illusion of the great Lord was actually created by the silence, the spaces between the drum beats.
That is a brilliant observation.
Yeah.
The human brain naturally defaults to linear extrapolation because it is computationally cheap, right? If X is good, 10X must be 10 times better.
Right.
It takes significant cognitive discipline to map out a bell curve and realize that after a certain point, adding more effort actually destroys the result.
You see this in a boardroom all the time. Someone makes a phenomenal point, they've won the argument, but they just keep talking and talking until they've annoyed everyone in the room and lost the deal. They over-drummed.
Or a manager who implements a good oversight protocol, but then keeps adding more and more micromanagement rules until the team's productivity just grinds to a complete halt.
Yeah, they don't know when to stop.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The Bodhisattva's poem at the end of the drummer story synthesizes this concept perfectly. The text translates it as, "Go not too far, but learn excess to shun, for over-drumming lost what drumming won."
Over-drumming lost what drumming won. That is really going to stick with me.
It's the unifying thread of all the sources we've looked at today. Whether we are talking about a literal drum, or a magic charm that summons wealth, a heavy pestle used to swat a fly, or, a venomous viper kept in a bamboo tube.
The true antagonist is never the external object.
Right. The danger is always our lack of internal discipline.
It really is a complete diagnostic of the mind.
Yeah.
These texts are thousands of years old, but they are mapping out cognitive dissonance, the sunk cost fallacy, intent versus competence, and the catastrophic failure to calculate second-order consequences.
They are ancient mirrors. They force us to look at how our own lack of self-regulation manifests as external disaster. The ego, the ignorance, the impatience, the excess.
And that brings us to the final thought I want to leave you with today. We started by discussing how the physical world has obvious warning signs, but the psychological world does not. You have to be your own warning sign. So I want you to take a hard look at your own life right now.
Yeah.
What is the viper that you are currently keeping in a bamboo joint? Where are you secretly convinced that your affection, your effort, or your sheer willpower can change the fundamental toxic nature of a situation?
Or perhaps more subtly, where are you over-drumming?
Exactly. Where have you already won the point, secured the deal, or made the connection, but you're continuing to push, completely blind to the fact that you are actively destroying the very thing you're trying to protect?
The spaces between the beats are where the power lies. Sometimes the smartest thing you can do is simply stop.
It's a profound lesson from a very ancient forest. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We always love unpacking these mechanics with you. Until next time, keep an eye out for those hidden blind spots. Mind the second-order consequences. And whatever you do, don't reach into the bamboo. Take care.